Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Friday Night Spotlight, brought to you by Jones Ford Buick GMC, your hometown dealer for more than 50 years. I am Brian Wright, and I'm joined by Maria Vasquez. And we're still talking high school football for at least one more week because we have Santa Cruz Valley is in the 2A state championship game. And of course, last weekend we had two teams play semifinal games. Casa Grande played in the 4A semifinals, and Santa Cruz played in the 2A semifinals. Casa Grande was defeated by Glendale Cactus 35-13. And we're going to start by just kind of giving a little bit of a wrap on that game and the season for CG Union, which was really one of the best seasons in school history for the Cougars. They got a number one seed in the 4A playoffs. They made the state semifinals for the first time. Now, of course, they do have some state championships from back in the 1950s, but that was pre actual playoffs. So when we talk about actual playoff games being played, first time they ever reached the semifinals. Now, this game against Cactus, and Maria, you were actually there to watch this game along with me. And Cactus just, I had heard from Coach Jake Barrow and even from Athletic Director Randy Robbins that this was going to be a really big challenge for them, that they thought Cactus was the next best team in 4A behind them. And boy, did Cactus show that. And their defense is just so good. And particularly up front, that defensive line got after Casa Grande from the very beginning. But Maria, I'll let you go with kind of your first thoughts on that game.
You mentioned it, the defense. I mean, a big part of CG Union's offense is their running game, and Cactus completely shut that down. RJ Keaton really struggled. Even Angel Flores, he's real good at scrambling out of the pocket and extending plays. Cactus didn't really let him do any of that.
Yeah, and I think Casa Grande all year long was able to move the ball so easily up and down the field, and a lot of that was their offensive line blocking really well and opening up running lanes, and then guys like RJ Keaton and Angel Flores hitting those holes. And the defensive line for Cactus was so good that not only were they winning the battle up front, but when RJ Keaton or Angel Flores would see those holes and they'd run to them, those holes closed really fast because those Cactus defenders were getting in there and making plays. I think this game really, it really wasn't very competitive from the start. Just looking at the quarter by quarter scores, Casa Grande did not get on the board until the fourth quarter. At that point, they were already down 21-0. So they finally score a touchdown in the fourth quarter. And they may have had a little bit of a window, I think, right there. But then, of course, Cactus returned the ensuing kickoff 91 yards for a touchdown, and that was pretty much that. But Maria, what are some of your final thoughts on just the Casa Grande season, what they were able to accomplish this year?
I think giving everything, with COVID-19 and just the fact that they got a season and they made it so far, I think that that's a bright spot for the CG Union football team. And also, we've talked about this before. Their core are juniors this year, so next year, hey, this is going to be a very fun and competitive team to watch.
Well, thank you, Maria, for taking my final talking point away from me, because that is exactly what I was going to say. You got a young team. They're going to return almost all of their impact players. And I think you're going to see Casa Grande competing for the 4A state championship again next season. So let's move on to the 2A bracket, which is, Santa Cruz. They did advance. They're in the state championship game, but man, they had a tough fight on their hands. And, I think we had seen them dominate their competition so much that this may have come as a shock. Of course, part of the reason it comes as a shock was we just didn't know a lot about St. John's. And, Maria, you were able to cover that game, and St. John's made it really difficult on Santa Cruz and even had the lead at halftime. So what were some of the things that St. John's was able to do to give Santa Cruz some trouble in that game?
So St. John's came in, from my point of view, they were really prepared for Santa Cruz run game. And I mean, Hunter Ogle still had a typical Hunter Ogle game, over 100 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. But, the rest of the team, they struggled a bit. The supporting cast with David Aviles, Ricardo Alanis, Steve Calvin. Now, Steve Calvin was pretty much the savior for the Santa Cruz season. He had that big punt return for a touchdown, and then he got them the go-ahead touchdown early in the fourth quarter. But before that, there wasn't much going for the Dust Devils. And the thing that really stood out to me is something that Coach Rashard Davis just really implemented for his guys last season, and that was that they can't get discouraged if they don't get those big yard plays that they've grown accustomed to this year. And as long as, hey, you're moving the ball, it's positive yardage, you got to be happy with that.
So Santa Cruz was down 14-6 at the half, I believe. And, they come back and the final score is 27-20. It was tied at 20 in the fourth quarter before Steve Calvin scores that final touchdown. But, I think you got to give Rashard Davis some credit here for the adjustments he made at halftime, right? Because they have 6 points at the half. They're having a little bit of a struggle moving the football, at least not the way they're accustomed to doing it. And then they go out and they score 3 touchdowns in the second half. Now, one of them you mentioned was a special teams touchdown by Calvin. But it seems to me that they moved the ball better and their offense was more effective in the second half. So, Maria, what were some of the things that they were able to do after halftime that really got them back into the game?
So, you have to give credit to the defense here. Devin Ethington, we haven't really mentioned him at all this season, but he came up with some big stops. Just all the other guys I typically mention, the Castillo Lopez twins and Diego and Juan, Tanzer Gill, Dylan Huckel, they were putting pressure on St. John's quarterback, which is something they also struggled a bit in the first half. And Wyatt Ogle, he's been lights out on defense. He came up with a big fourth down stop to give Santa Cruz that chance to come back and win the game.
At the 2A level, you have a lot of guys that play both ways, but I think it's interesting that Wyatt Ogle, we talk so much about him being the quarterback, but really he has his biggest impact on the defensive side of the ball, where he is one of the top defensive players for Santa Cruz. We talked about Santa Cruz being battle tested, and certainly they were battle tested coming in, and they're going to be even more battle tested now. But now you got Benson, and Benson is 9-0. They were the number 1 seed, again with the seeding. I'm not sure how Santa Cruz wasn't the number 1 seed, but Benson did get the number 1 seed. In their semifinal game, they ended up beating Arizona Lutheran 34-27. When you look at the matchup, Santa Cruz versus Benson in the championship game, Maria, what do you think stands out in that matchup?
So Benson is a really junior heavy team. All their key players are barely juniors. You have quarterback Brock Biederman, running back Devin Bowling, and a lot of their key defensive players in Cameron McFarland and Ryan Fransoni. Now, they're big on their rushing game. The Bobcats are. Bowling has over 800 rushing yards. He leads the team with 12 touchdowns. There's not much of a passing game here. Dieterman, he does have 356 passing yards, but he only has a 39% completion rate. So looking at this, Santa Cruz does a really good job at stopping opponents' run game. So, I think this is going to be more in the Dust Devils territory and something they're comfortable with.
Yeah, I wonder if, this is not to disparage Benson, but I wonder if Santa Cruz played its toughest opponent last week in St. John's. And we certainly know that Mike Morgan, who coaches St. John's, is one of the best coaches in Arizona high school football history. Benson, they played a fairly weak schedule during the year. And, just looking at their schedule, they did play Morenci midway through the year, and they only beat Morenci 12-6. And, Morenci finished number 8 in the power points. And, Santa Cruz certainly did not struggle like that against any 2A team up until the semifinals against St. John's. And then I look at this game against Arizona Lutheran last week. Benson had 252 total yards. That's not a lot of offense. They did get a couple of interceptions in that game, which I think if you look at, they scored 34 points. You got to look at those 2 interceptions as being part of getting them into a position to score that many points. They only averaged a little over 5 yards a carry last week against Arizona Lutheran. 2 rushing touchdowns. They did lose 2 fumbles as well. And so I just know, Santa Cruz is going to really bring it defensively. So that could be a tough matchup for Benson. Now, I do think it's going to be a competitive game. I don't see this being a blowout necessarily. But I wonder, Maria, how do you think Benson stacks up against Santa Cruz?
I think they're going to be a little more competitive this game than they were in the semifinals. Another thing to take into consideration is technically that was Benson's first game during the play-in round and the quarterfinals. They didn't play because the other team had a forfeit. So, right. Having a couple of weeks, without actual competition, I think maybe there was a bit of rust or something like that. But having played this game against Arizona Lutheran, I think they're going to be more prepared for Santa Cruz.
And what's interesting, you mentioned that game that they won by forfeit. What they were going to play Morenci, so that was the team that they only beat 12-6 in the regular season. So I would have been really interested to see how that second matchup went. But of course, we won't know because that game wasn't played. Maria, what do you think it's going to be like the keys for Santa Cruz to winning this 2A state championship game, and what they need to do against Benson?
I think they're going to have to bring their A game early on. They can't wait until the second half like they did against St. John's. And, they really have to stick to their game plan. And, during the first half, just wandering along the sidelines, you can hear Coach Davis saying into the headset, "Hey, I trust these boys. I trust my team." And, it just says a lot, saying that, hey, okay, we are down now, but I believe this team is going to be able to come back. And that's, just a testament to what this Santa Cruz defense has been able to do all season long, even though those early matchups were blowouts.
Yeah, and I do want to throw into, I got to give you credit because last week you kind of pointed out Steve Calvin and you said, hey, look, Steve Calvin needs to get more love. He's doing all these good things. And then of course he ends up making 2 huge plays in the fourth quarter that ended up deciding that game. I look at that game last week against St. John's, and I think for a team like Santa Cruz, who has been so dominant all year, when you go into the locker room down 14-6, that's got to be tough mentally to deal with that. But they battled through it. They played better in the second half. They came back against a very good, very well coached St. John's team. I think that says a lot about this group and what they're capable of. And again, got to give credit to Rashard Davis, who certainly made adjustments at halftime and got his team to where they needed to be in the second half. So this game is going to be played on Saturday at Coronado High School in Scottsdale. So that's going to do it for this week's show. Remember to visit PinalCentral.com for all of your Pinal County football action, and enjoy the game on Saturday.